Everybody, welcome back to the Revolution of Being podcast. So, we are following up from our conversation last week about not only technology, TikTok, different social medias, but really on the other side of that, detoxification. So, there's so much good in the technology we have these days. And also, as we know, there's a lot of dependence upon that, which kind of makes us at times a little lazy, and we get really used to the tools we have, and they're wonderful. We get used to plunking an address in our iPhone that takes us from point A to point B, and maybe we've been there 5 times, but we're just not quite sure if we remember the exact route. So, just to be safe, we have that guide, where we really want to look up something quickly. Because you and I were talking about what year did the Mayan Empire, fall? And it's like, oh, let me Google it quick. Rather than existing in a state of wonder and curiosity, we just immediately have results and feedback. And we're living in a time that our ancestors never had access to information. I mean, you and I grew up in an era where Google was not yet a thing. So we are the last generation who are living in both worlds where, I remember my mom spending hundreds of dollars on a set of Britannica encyclopedias, because there was like a door to door guy who came around and was selling them. And that's how you got information. That's how you did your book reports. That's, what you referenced. And now we live in a time where everything is at your disposal. And we'd like to, you and I talk about polarity, where there's the good and then there's the not so good of all of these tools that we have. And, on top of that, we speak to these things like TikTok or social media that are designed to spike the dopamine centers in your brain to keep you sucked in and engaged. And so, we really wanted to dive in today on kind of the addictive nature of those things, but also if you're at the point where you're like, yeah, I'm needing a little break. Like I know I could be doing something more constructive with my time, or I'm just wanting a little detoxification. We're going to go through that because, the start of the new year, everyone gets really excited about new opportunities. And I think of a lot of the wasted potential many of us have, myself included, because we spend hours scrolling or, intend to post something and then just get sucked in because we see a catchy video and then we're just enamored.
It's like quicksand. I find myself going onto my phone to respond to an email. I work from my phone a lot, and then all of a sudden it's like my brain shuts off and I hit the TikTok app. And then it might be game over for a while. It's really a thing. And I think that there's definitely some signs to look for in this, because you're right. We're so used to having this quick information. I watched this movie called White Noise. It took place in 1984, and it was kind of funny because if you think like we do, even just a little bit, it's kind of fascinating because it talks about almost the spread of information and how easily humans are influenced.
Mhm.
And they didn't have accessibility to like Google or any of these things. So there was like a conversation where the mom was going to buy like a pack of gum, and her daughter says, no, it was the carefree gum. And she's like, no, that has rat poison in it. And the mom's like, "Ah, but you told me I had to buy sugar free." So
Mhm.
obviously it was aspartame, and the daughter's like, well, the other ones have food coloring in it. And now there's a warning label on it. So it's everything we've always been told, we just believed at face value, but now we have this information and it's addicting. You're right. Like, what's next? It's like pulling the lever on a slot machine. What do I get next? What's going to come next? What am I going to watch? So, a few signs that I always notice in myself when I get to that point of like, I wish I could just quit you. I wish I could break up with you for a while. We need to be on a break. Is I'm just gonna be really vulnerable. My phone sits next to my bed on its little charger. So when I roll over in the morning, my first instinct is to grab it. I hate that. I hate that. And I am torn, right? And so I'm going to play devil's advocate with myself. I'm torn because I always think, what if there was an emergency and somebody needed to call me? So I need to have my phone right there. But truthfully, I could just put it on the other side of my room. So that's my first sign. It's the first thing I grab in the morning. The second sign is just that I kind of go into autopilot on occasion, and all of a sudden I come to and I have my phone in my hand. I don't even know what just happened. I don't know how I got there. So I get this weird amnesia around it. And it's like the void calling. It must be, where I just kind of reach for it and suddenly I'm just scrolling. Um, and then the third one I feel is I feel like I can get sucked into content that maybe isn't healthy for my mental state. And so I can go from being in an okay mood to suddenly feeling kind of dreadful or unhappy, because it triggers something that's within me. And then it kind of blasts my whole day. It ruins my whole day, or it could. So those are the things that I see in myself that I say, it might be time to take a break.
Yeah. And that's so common. I think so many people, all of us now, our phones are everything. They're our alarm clock. They're our phone, our texting machine, our email system, our computer, our ability to listen to music, our ability to access social media. I mean, navigation, everything is in our phone. And it is our instinct, especially when it's our alarm clock. Like, what do? You grab your phone. Well, okay, your phone unlocks, and then you're like, oh, well, I wonder what came through last night. And if you're like me, I take it off airplane mode, and then I get all the notifications. I'm like, oh my God, first thing in the morning. And then it can kind of trap you like, oh, what did I miss overnight? Or what emails do I
Mhm.
have to respond to? Or what's going on? And it can kind of create this sense of urgency already within your day when you're just getting up. Um, and to your point too, I've been very intentional the last probably close to a year of just I don't, I'll look at my phone for the time, I'll take it off airplane mode, but I do not for the first 10 minutes at least. I don't mess with it. I don't wanna look at it, I don't wanna open it up beyond seeing the time. And I try to extend that, but, not always. And then, I mean, just to kinda not because I will find myself what I was doing before, like many people, I would pop it open, then I would just get sucked in right away, first thing in
Mhm.
the morning, and I'd find myself literally wanting to choose skipping a workout because I was sucked into social media. And I've had such a strong routine for years that I'm like, "Oh my god." Like, my routine I've
Mhm.
had forever, I'm now forgoing because I got locked into this. So I find if I am delaying it, I'm not as likely to kind of sabotage those plans. Um, but that's very common, and then even that boredom reflex, right? My reflex when I'm bored is to check
Mhm.
my phone, and that's just a very unconscious habit, "Well, something's going on, let's see," or fill that time or whatever, and, my husband will even notice, like, "And you're on your phone a lot, like, can you just pay attention?" And he'll kinda call me, and sometimes it's work related, sometimes it's, catching up with people I haven't been able to because the day's been busy, and other times I'm just kinda zoning out on, Facebook or
Mhm.
whatever, or, TikTok because, I don't wanna watch what the kids are watching kind of thing, and I've used as an excuse to be present with them, right? Air quote, "present," but doing my own thing. And, so those were some of the things he was just getting frustrated with. Like, you're on that a lot. And he's not someone on social media. He uses his phone to read, his own news sources. And that's about it. Like, he doesn't do a whole lot on his phone. So
Mhm.
it's humbling because we're very different in that respect. And those have been kind of some of my signs where I'm like, I got to look at this. And, my brother was in town. Gosh, I think it was in November, October. And I was with him and his wife, and they had gotten into a little tuffle about her use of YouTube and Instagram, and she barely uses it,
Mhm.
not to the extent that I do. And they were, my brother's very anti technology in that respect, social media, anything that is privacy related, he does not like. And they were discussing, heatedly her use of all this stuff. And again, very minimal use on her end. And I was like, oh my God. And I literally said, if you think her usage is high, like, you don't want to look at my phone. Like, oh my God. But it was humbling because it was like, oh my God, not everybody like lives like this. And that's a good thing, that people are still normal without technology. They don't depend on it or actually want it. At least that kind of technology. And so it got me into, again, my own reflection of how can I wean down? Like, I don't need it to this extent. And, I would always have excuses, right? Well, I'm a business owner. I have to have my phone near me. I've got to make sure I'm checking social media to make sure no one's messaging, whatever. And it's a bunch of bullshit. I can check it once or twice a day and it's fine, you know? So I actually ended up getting a book. So I listened to a podcast at the start of the year. I forget whose podcast it was, but they interviewed a gentleman named Carlos Whitaker. So Carlos is a huge Instagram person. I think he's kind of in the realm of like motivational speaking. I don't fully know like what his niche is. I didn't really look, but he had written a book called Reconnected, which was about his digital detox for 7 weeks, how he basically went technology free for 7 weeks. And on this interview, they were talking about his journey and what that was like. And I was like, I need to get that book because I'm
Mhm.
now curious because it was almost like the universe was like, ping, hey, you've been thinking about it. Here's a few more nuggets to like take it to the next level.
Mhm.
And I'm always someone where even when I went alcohol free almost 5 years ago, I was, like, dabbling in it first. I like to dabble. I gotta, like, stick my toe in
Mhm.
and be like, "Do I like this? Let's go a little further." So same thing with technology, right? It's like an addiction.
Mhm.
So I, was like, I need to, like, just kinda dabble in this, get some information, get comfortable with it, and then I'll jump in. And so I got the book called Reconnected, and if you're on YouTube, you're visually, you'll see this. It's a fantastic book. And, Carlos goes through, so I won't spoil it for you because it's on the cover, but he spends 2 weeks in a monastery and then 2 weeks living with the Amish, and then 3 weeks like at home without digital stuff, basically without his phone, without TV, no podcasts, nothing that's like outside created. And it was profound, the experience he had. And I think one of the biggest things he said that I was like, yeah, we don't do this. Like, we don't
Mhm.
wonder anymore because we have instant information. Like, we don't pause to say, I don't know what the answer is to that. Huh.
Yeah.
I wonder what it could be. We find out immediately. Let me Google that. Let me check. I do that all the damn time. And I had that instinct the other day and I was like, nope, not going to do it. And I stopped. I was like, nope, if it's important enough, I'll get an answer for it. I don't have to know everything. And it wasn't something earth shattering. It was like, I wonder what the spiritual meaning of blah is. Like, it was something that didn't even matter. And I was like, it'll come to me. It's fine. And
Mhm.
so, it's like how much of our wonder and our creativity and our intuition is bogged down
Mhm.
by our disconnection from ourselves. And it had me further go down the wormhole of who the hell are we without the influence of others in our ears, right? Like, I think back to the career moves I've made, the different things I've done, and I'm like, so many of them have had influences that were not mine. They were
Mhm.
not my intuition, and they weren't bad, right? They weren't bad moves. I followed my intuition when I got the nudges to take the actions I did. But I'm like, man, who the hell is Angie without the influence of anybody telling me how life should be?
Right. Yeah.
That it means a certain thing to have this level income per month, or it means a certain thing to um, have a podcast,
Yeah.
to, you know, do X in my business or this with
Anything.
my children. Every
Anything at all.
is influenced. And it was just really profound to realize, as much as we can say we're autonomous beings, we are not. We are social creatures
Mhm.
continually and influenced in a way we never, ever, ever have been before. You and I had Cosmopolitan and 17 magazine when we were younger. Those
Mhm.
were influential and not the best influences, but they
Right.
were influential. But that's all we had. We didn't have the echo chamber of social media at us telling us what perfection is, what beauty is, what it means to be a woman or whatever. It's a very confusing time. And so point being, it really had me kind of pull back and think, but who is Angie? And so, how do you get to that? You begin to detox off these things. You begin to pull back and have more of that solitude, have more of that time of just curiosity, of
Mhm.
not having the answer, of not having to know immediately, of trust. And that's the other thing too is speaking of technology, Life 360. How many freaking helicopter parents out there have
Mhm.
Life 360 that are constantly checking in on their children? Now you might be like, well, yeah, it's a different world. I get it. But the agony you spend checking on your child all the time, and Carlos goes into that in the book, and I think his approach is really balanced, with his kids when they were driving. When they first got their vehicles, it was, "Yep, I'm gonna be checking on you because you're a new driver and I wanna make sure you're safe." And then once that was established, he pulled off. He was like, "I'm not doing this anymore. I
Mhm.
trust that you're gonna be home when you need to be." And I think that's balanced, you know? I think we can excuse every reason to use technology, and we can also counter why we don't necessarily need it and why we've become too dependent on that and rather, trust the universe, God, higher power, whatever you
Mhm.
want to say, that things are unfolding. And even as you mentioned with the phone thing, what if there's an emergency? People know how to get a hold of us without
Yeah.
phones. It's like we can counter like and I do that myself too. Like, my kids are gone. What if there's an emergency? Like they're at their friend's house. Um, People know how to get a hold of us still, kind of thing. They know where we live. Our friends,
Mhm.
parents know where we are, kind of thing, or all of that. So it's really, I think actually this is a funny time to interject this. When speaking of technology, so I don't think I've told this story before, but this is worth listening to because it's hilarious. When I had my second child, so I was like 40 weeks on the dot pregnant. We have this big, like, local garage sale event in my city every year that, like, people come from out of state to do. So I'm, like, super uber pregnant, and I'm ready to have this damn baby. So we're garage sailing, walking around, I'm thinking something's gonna get this labor started, right? So I'm, like, walking around, nothing is happening, and I'm like, "Okay, well, we were garage sailing all day, I'm uncomfortable," and we were literally just out to be out. And so I was like, "I don't know, maybe I need a massage. Like, what can induce this labor quickly here? Like, I'm just uncomfortable, and hell, a massage wouldn't be a bad thing right now. My body aches." So I scheduled a massage at a local chiropractor's office. She happened to have a masseuse there, and they did prenatal, which was perfect. So my husband dropped me off. I don't recall why we had one vehicle, but he dropped me off there and was going to pick me up in an hour because it was an hour massage. I think he was going to go grab our little one or something from daycare. And so he drops me off. This woman, they have the whole, like, if you've ever had a prenatal massage, they have a bed where the belly's cut out so you can lay on your tummy. And so I was laying on my belly. My tummy was, through this little hole. And she begins massaging my back. And immediately within, 5 minutes of the massage, I felt a pop in the middle of my back and a gush. And I was like, "Oh shit. Oh shit, my water broke." And it shocked me because I'm here with this woman I just met, my freaking water broke. And I immediately, if you're a woman who's had a baby, I immediately went into the transition shakes. And if you know what that is, like, that means you're gonna be having this baby real quick. And so they gave me this blanket to hold between my legs because I'm just gushing, amniotic fluid, and I'm shaking. I'm trying to call my husband, who doesn't answer his phone, by the way, and he's not answering his damn phone. And I'm like, "I'm freaking stuck here. I'm in labor. I don't know how soon I'm gonna be giving birth to this child, and I can't get a hold of my damn husband." And so he will never live this down. Well, what did I do? I called my neighbors who walked over to our house to get him and were like, "Hey, your wife's water broke. You need to go get her." So then it was like this whole chaos of, getting me, rushing me to the hospital. And my son came very, very fast. And it was hilarious though, but, he's like, "Yeah, I probably should have had my phone on then." I'm like, "Yeah, that would have been a good time." But regardless, I knew how to get a hold of him still, right? Like, I had someone I knew, I had numbers around me where people could contact him. He was, I don't even know what the hell he was doing, probably playing guitar. And we figured it out. So, to this day, he's never going to live that down because it's funny, but it also shows like you can figure shit out in emergencies even without modern technology. Someone else has a phone, someone else knows how to get there. Yeah, it's not a big deal. But either way, if you need to find, I happen to still keep in contact with the chiropractor, and I saw her recently. So it's kind of funny. Like, "Hey, remember me? The one who, yeah, sorry about that." Like,
Right? Sorry about the mess.
it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, it's the silence of detoxing from it, turning it off is pretty priceless. And like you said, there's always ways. I've had to find them myself. I had, two teenage sons, and I don't know if everybody else's teenagers were like my teenagers, but they just always keep their phone on silence. And the only things that get through are gaming requests or anything else that's more important than a parent. So I've been at work and been like, "Are you alive? Are you alive? Where are you? Where are you?" And I've always found a way to figure that out. So you're 100% right. I don't think there's really too much that beyond that really needs to be explained, but a few different ways you can do it. So I'm gonna take some of my own advice. I think this would be fun to maybe challenge each other to put it into perspective a little bit and actually try some of this stuff. But some of the things I've done in the past that I would like to redo, I keep my notifications off on my phone all the time. I have found that if I don't get the notifications, my life is better because I'm sort of like Pavlov's dog, where every time it would beep or light up, I was like, hey, what's there? And I see that evidence with my own dog. She loves to chase laser pointers because that's what my kids did with her when she was little. So if you open up your phone, she's like, is that a laser pointer? So the light triggers her. That's the same thing that happens to people. The notifications, the light, whatever it is. I turn those off all the time. And then I don't know, I'm sure Androids do this as well, but with Apple, you can go in and you can say who can contact you if you're in sleep mode or work mode or whatever. So I just have my list of people that can get through. I have, my kids, obviously, and certain people that are close to me. Those are the people that I need to get through if there is an emergency, because I don't have a landline anymore. I'm not going to get that ring at 1 a.m. saying there was a problem. So that's the first thing I highly recommend. So once I turned all those notifications off for social media, for just, you get spammed in your texts, you get spammed, and then you get real stuff, turn your notifications off. The other thing that I found really helpful is I'm a highly responsive person. That's a good thing, but it also was interrupting time when I should be present elsewhere, maybe with my kids, maybe with a client, maybe just with myself. Um, Try to be aware of that, right? If you see a notification, we don't have to respond right away. You don't have to. If it's not that important, we don't have to respond right away. You and I, we message a lot. And I'd say sometimes we respond quick and sometimes we go a while. And we're always okay with that because that's the way it should be. We have so much Insta technology that I think we have to respond at 1 a.m. or whatever it is. So monitor yourself a little bit there. You can turn notifications off and you can delay your response. And then the other thing, which I've done before, but I really like that you reminded me of it, would be not making my phone the first thing I do in the morning. And I had done this for a while and, things go in seasons. But what I did before is I would wake up. It took me a while to break that habit. My alarm does go off on my phone. I can just hit stop without ever opening it up. And really, I would love to leave it right on its little charger. I would like to get up, let my dog out, do whatever I need to do. And I used to make myself wait until I got the dishes done in the morning. So I would make myself go do something productive for my life. It could be anything. It might be I'm going to read for 10 minutes, a half an hour, or I would meditate. I would oftentimes get up and the first thing when my brain was still in that like slightly delta east state, I would go into a meditation and I wouldn't touch my phone until after. So there's little things you can do, make a little reward system. Those are my little tips and tricks because you're right. Like separating yourself from it, it might be that you want to go the cold turkey and do what this gentleman did that wrote the book, where he put himself into these places and really, really like isolated himself away from that. There's that way. And then there's more of, can I dip my toe in? Can I just see what this is like and what's right for you? Because again, there's no good or bad, right or wrong. It's all about you. But maybe it's that for the first hour that I'm awake, this is not what I do. And I give myself 10 minutes of it, whatever it is, to catch up, to do something different. Um, Maybe it's going for a walk, and I'm terrible about this, without headphones in. Like,
Mhm.
do we know what our world sounds like anymore? I'm like podcast, music, videos, junkie. My ADD brain wants to constantly get fed. And so it's what would that be like? I find my greatest peace. I'm so thankful for being a horse owner, because when I go out there, reality is really different. I'm in the mud or the dirt. You feel the dirt, and it's the smell of an animal or just the touch of it, nature all around you. And it's quiet. All you hear is them walking, or the sound of the wind, or maybe a conversation with a friend. Find something that can do that with you, right?
Yeah.
Something that you can enjoy, but that gives you some separation.
Yeah, yeah, and there's so many, I mean, those are fantastic, and, certainly the hour and they even say too, when you start your day with your phone, then you constantly are dopamine seeking the rest of the day, so it really does sabotage your day to get into that, and that's not to shame anybody, because 'cause I'm fully guilty, I think we're human, we're doing our best, and we're trying and learning and figuring it out, pivoting and all the things, but I think, as much as possible, delaying the phone use time is fantastic. I do think, it's not the most realistic for most of us to do a 7-week detox, especially as business owners. Like, I don't that's not even possible for us to do it to the full extent of what he did. Um, but, my husband and I, before we had kids, would do Boundary Waters trips, and, we would go camping around the canoe for a week and not have our technology. Now it's a little different with children, of course. We don't feel as comfortable to not be um, unable to be gotten a hold of. But now that our kids are a little bigger, they can come with us. So, for us, those weekend trips without technology are amazing. And I know the dread I feel when I turn my phone back on. I feel literal dread. And so, how can you take something like that into your daily? And it can be as simple as, I'm going to check my email once a day only, or twice a day, once at 8 a.m., once at 5 or 4:30 or whatever your day end is. Um, I'm going to allow myself, 1 hour of social media time per day, and I'm going to have an alarm. And I believe I'm not super techy, but I think there are actually applications you can have that will
Mhm.
help you with those goals. The other thing I know a lot of people do is remove those apps from their phone. Have Facebook off your phone, have Instagram off your phone. TikTok's a little bit more interesting because it's more of a scroll thing. So it's a little bit weirder of a thing to remove from your phone, but regardless, get it off your phone. You're not going to be as likely to, scroll.
Mhm.
Um, and you could do a digital detox weekend or a day,
Mhm.
a day a week where you're like, I don't have my phone this day. I don't
Yeah.
want it. And we've talked about that with our house, a screen-free weekend day, like a day where we just use our creativity. And, I tell you this weekend, our kids, it snowed out here and we're in Minnesota. And my kids were bored and I'm like, all right, well, you can help clean the house. Now I've had pneumonia the last week. So I'm like, all right, well, finally have a little energy. So we're going to clean or you're going to go outside and play and put you to work. Something's going to happen here. And so they opted to go play. And it was amazing. We had cut down a tree this summer that had the emerald ash borer. So it was not doing well. So we cut down a tree. We had all the big lump the big pieces of wood in the backyard and everything and stump and all that. And my older began to take like these big logs and organize a drum set. And I see him out there with little sticks just playing away like he's playing eardrums on the and I'm like, this is the creativity. This is the wonder. This is why the second these children are bored, you don't give them a freaking tablet, and I even speaking of that, I see my kids and it breaks my heart because we are probably the most strict parents when it comes to devices with our kids, and I'm good with that because my kids are brilliant, and I don't want that stifled by technology in that respect. I don't want them playing Fortnite all day like many of their friends are. I don't want them having phones yet. They don't need that. They have us. They have access to things. Um, so I see them though. They each get 1 hour of time on their Nintendo on the weekend, on a Saturday, and on a Sunday, so 2 hours total. And they're like little drug addicts. You take it away and they're angry and their day's ruined and they're aggressive and they're just different people. And it is such a stark difference than the little ones they were before and after. And I still don't know how to fully navigate that, right? Because they are going to use the technology. And also, I can see a huge behavioral change.
Mhm.
Adults are like that too. We just can kind of clamp it in a little bit better. So, anyways, with that, with the screen free day thing, it's like I just saw within an hour of the creativity they pulled out. So, if you can have a full 24 hours, no technology, no screens, or rather, I should just say no screens, no social media, no phones, no podcasts, no YouTube, maybe a little old school radio, but even that, just eliminate the distractions. I did implement the walking this summer without technology, and it was amazing. I'll say if
Mhm.
I do a run, I still listen to music because I just kind of like that little bit of distraction for running. Um, but I'll do, hour walks without any music, and I love it because you just are more aware, and that those are the times where you get those little pings of inspiration, of creativity, of, "I should consider this within," like, you have that problem-solving capacity, like Einstein, he would sleep on problems and come and wake up with the solution. It's like you're giving your brain time to kinda receive that more intuitively, more divinely guided. Um, so there's a lot of different ways, if you're on vacation, can you leave your phone in your hotel and just explore? Get lost. Like, how fun. When was the last time any of us were lost? Like, I don't know the last time I was actually legit lost. And it's not scary, like, because there are people you can ask, like, what cool coffee shop that you bump into because you didn't take your phone and you're not reliant upon Yelp reviews or Google reviews to pick your restaurant. You just are like, that looks cute. I want to try it out. And you find this gem. So, even that, like, turn off your GPS. If you've been somewhere before, do it by memory. Check it
Yeah.
out. Might take a wrong turn. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yep, figure it out, So, there's a
Mhm.
lot you can do, and again, I think it's probably unreasonable for the majority to do mass detox like this, but, it really is, as you and I talk about, how do you find that balance in this world? Because it's not going anywhere, and they're not bad things, but they do have an underbelly that can be a little insidious if you're not careful, and if you find yourself, getting anxious, because you don't have your fix, that's a good sign.
Mhm.
Start taking action on
Yeah.
scaling back. If you
Yeah.
find yourself feeling restless because you don't have it, it's a great sign that you need something else. And you and I are big proponents of nature always. Now, where we are in Minnesota, it's cold as hell right now. So it's a little harder to get outside, but finding something that's
Mhm.
nature based or that can just get you out of your element is going to be really
There's
helpful.
there's so much around us, and it is uncomfortable. That's without a doubt. It's going to create discomfort in you because you're interrupting a pattern that you've maybe had for a long time. But what the aim is to allow that discomfort, because that makes you know you're on the right path. That's your sign that if you're uncomfortable giving it up for 10 minutes, an hour, that you're on the right path. The next level is you get some kind of little reward for it. So it might be that you stumble into that really awesome coffee shop, or you suddenly notice something or find appreciation for something. And it's like, had I had my nose in my laptop, in my phone, had I not been listening because there was music in my earbuds in my head, would I have noticed that? Would I have been able to pause to appreciate that? Or maybe even intervene with something that could have had bad consequences. I think often when I go on walks, I'm with my dog. It's her favorite thing in the world to do. And when I have my headphones in, am I really present with her? And it's the smallest little thing in her short little life that she just loses her mind over. And I think about that. It's like, can I not just give you this hour to even just talk to you or just breathe with you and just explore with you? She's in that mode. And I often think if I could be more like my dog. So pay attention. Think about, who are you? Who do I want to be? And what could letting some of it go for a little while at least, what could that do for you?
Yeah.
What new information might I learn? What new hobby can I develop? Maybe there's old hobbies you've let go of. Maybe you played an instrument. Maybe you painted. Maybe you loved reading a good book. Practice that because it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but man, it gives life. And then see if you can find your balance eventually again, because just like your children, technology is not going anywhere. But our job as conscious beings is to be able to find our synchronicity within that.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. Such a good conversation. And if you guys have additional hacks or things that you've used that have helped you kind of detox, I mean, there's so many. This is just a few that we've listed off, but always love feedback, always love questions. So have an awesome week and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
Yeah.